In the busy, colorful city of Albany, the streets were alive with music, chatter, and the smell of roasted plantain from the roadside. Inside a small, warm-lit bridal shop, Zuri stood in front of a mirror, her heart pounding with excitement. She couldn't stop smiling. After 2 long years of saving every spare naira, skipping small pleasures and taking extra work, the dream she had carried in her heart was finally real. The dress was more than just fabric, it was a piece of her soul. Made from the softest silk, it flowed like water, with delicate lace tracing the sleeves and neckline. The beads caught the light and sparkled like tiny stars, and when she turned, the skirt swayed with a graceful whisper. She ran her fingers over the stitching, knowing every detail had been made just for her. The shop assistant clapped her hands softly. "Zuri, you look like a queen," she said. Zuri laughed, cheeks glowing. "I feel like one." She imagined walking down the aisle, her groom waiting, the crowd gasping in admiration. This was the dress she had dreamed of since she was a little girl playing pretend weddings with her cousins in the backyard. Her friends who had come with her took pictures, squealing over every turn she made. Even strangers in the shop paused to admire her. For a moment, Zuri forgot every sacrifice she had made, the skipped outings, the late nights, because in that moment she knew it had all been worth it. This was her dream and it was perfect. Zuri came home that warm afternoon humming a tune, still riding the joy of ticking off the last of her wedding checklist. She opened her bedroom door, expecting to see her beautiful dress hanging in its protective cover by the wardrobe. But the corner where it always hung was empty. Her heart skipped. At first, she thought maybe she had moved it for safekeeping and forgotten, but after checking every inch of the room, her stomach tightened. The dress was gone. She rushed into the living room where her mother, Folktales, was sipping tea as if nothing in the world was wrong. "Mama, my dress, where is it?" Zuri's voice shook. Folktales didn't even look surprised. She set her cup down and said flatly, "I sold it." For a moment Zuri just stood there, frozen. "You sold my wedding dress?" Her voice cracked like glass. "Yes," Folktales replied, almost bored. "I had debts to pay. You'll survive without that dress." Zuri's hands trembled. "Mama, I saved for 2 years for that dress. That was my dream. You knew how much it meant to me." Tears welled up, but her mother's face stayed cold. "Don't be dramatic," Folktales said, waving her hand as though swatting away an annoying fly. "It's just a dress. You can wear something cheaper. You young people waste too much money on foolish things." Zuri felt her knees weaken. She had imagined her mother sharing in her excitement, maybe even helping her get ready on the big day. Instead, she was standing here being told her joy meant nothing. "Mama, you could have talked to me. We could have found another way," Zuri whispered, her voice breaking. "I don't need to explain myself to you," Folktales snapped. "You're ungrateful. After all I've done for you, you should be happy I raised you at all. Stop crying. You'll ruin your face before the wedding." Her words cut deeper than the loss of the dress. Zuri realized this wasn't just about fabric and lace. It was about trust, respect, and love. And in this moment, all 3 felt stolen. She walked back to her room, her tears now falling freely, each one carrying a mix of anger and heartbreak. She sat on her bed, hugging herself, staring at the empty corner where her dream once hung. She could still see the silk shimmer in her mind, still feel the delicate lace under her fingertips. Outside, the sun dipped low, casting the room in shadows. Inside, Zuri felt something in her shift. She knew she had to face her wedding without the dress she had imagined, but the wound her mother left would be harder to mend than any missing garment. Zuri couldn't sleep that night. Her mind kept going back to her mother's cold voice, those careless words. "It's just a dress." By morning she was drained, but the ache in her chest was sharper than before. She walked into the kitchen where Folktales was making breakfast, hoping maybe her mother had thought about it and would explain, maybe even apologize. "Mama, please," Zuri said softly, her voice trembling. "Why did you do it? That dress. It wasn't just clothing to me. It was my dream. I worked so hard for it. I thought you'd be proud." Folktales didn't even look up from the pot she was stirring. "Proud? You're wasting money like a fool. You could have used that money for something important, not for showing off." "I wasn't showing off," Zuri replied, tears burning her eyes. It was my wedding day, Mama. Don't you understand? Her mother finally turned, but there was no softness in her gaze. Zuri, you are ungrateful. After all I've done to raise you, you still care more about a dress than about me. You'll wear something cheaper, and the world will keep turning. You should thank me for teaching you sense. Zuri felt like she had been slapped. Ungrateful, she whispered, her voice breaking. I just wanted you to be happy for me. But her mother had already turned away, ending the conversation. That afternoon, Zuri's closest friends came over, each carrying dresses from their own wardrobes. Satin, chiffon, lace, all beautiful in their own way. They laid them out on her bed, smiling gently, trying to cheer her up. Zuri, you'll still look stunning, one of them said. We can alter this one to fit you perfectly. She touched the fabrics, grateful for their kindness, but inside nothing felt right. None of them carried the story of her sacrifices. The late nights working, the skipped meals, the quiet joy she felt when she first saw her dress in the shop window. She forced a smile and thanked them, but when they left, she sat in silence, staring at the borrowed gowns. They were lovely, but they weren't hers. And no matter how hard she tried, she couldn't shake the emptiness that had taken root in her heart. The morning of Zuri's wedding should have been filled with butterflies and happy tears, but instead it felt heavy like the air before a storm. She woke up before sunrise, staring at the ceiling, listening to the faint sounds of the neighborhood waking up, roosters crowing, pots clanging, children laughing in the distance. But beneath those familiar sounds, she could hear something else, whispers. In Albany, news traveled faster than harmattan wind. By now, everyone knew the story. The bride had lost her dress. Some said it was stolen, others said she was careless. A few had even guessed the truth, that her own mother sold it. Outside, neighbors gathered in small groups, speaking in low voices, glancing at the house. Words like borrowed, mismatched, and shame floated through the air like smoke. Inside, Zuri sat quietly as her friends tried to help her dress. They had chosen one of the borrowed gowns, a simple white dress that didn't quite fit, paired with jewelry that didn't match. Every time she caught her reflection, her stomach twisted. This wasn't how she had imagined her wedding day. From the kitchen doorway, Folake stood watching, her lips curved in a small, satisfied smirk. She didn't say a word, but her eyes told the story. She was certain Zuri would walk into that crowd and be humiliated. She stirred her tea slowly, as if savoring the moment. One of Zuri's friends leaned in to whisper, "Ignore them. When he sees you, none of this will matter." But Zuri could feel the weight of every whisper outside, every curious eye waiting to see if the bride would arrive looking like a joke. She took a deep breath, trying to steady her heart. She told herself it didn't matter, that love was more important than appearances. But deep down, she still wished her dream dress was waiting for her. The memory of the silk and lace clung to her mind like a ghost, reminding her of everything that had been taken. As the morning sun climbed higher, the noise outside grew. Zuri knew it was time to step out, but she also knew the first walk she took that day would be through a sea of judgment, and somewhere behind her, her own mother would be smiling. The sun was climbing higher, and Zuri's heart felt heavier with each passing minute. She sat on the edge of her bed, her hands resting on the plain dress in her lap. Outside, she could hear neighbors laughing and talking, their voices floating through the open window. She knew they were talking about her. The shame pressed on her chest like a stone. Then, just as she was about to stand and get ready, there was a knock at the door. It wasn't loud, just a soft, steady sound. One of her friends went to open it, and there, on the doorstep, was a delivery man holding a long, beautifully wrapped box. "Are you Miss Zuri?" he asked. "Yes," she said, confused. "This is for you." No sender's name, just instructions to deliver it today. He handed her the box and left. Zuri's fingers trembled as she carried it to her bed. Her friends gathered around, eyes wide with curiosity. She pulled off the ribbon, lifted the lid, and inside, resting on a layer of soft white tissue paper, was an elegant envelope. She opened it slowly, her breath caught in her throat. On a single piece of thick cream paper, written in graceful handwriting, were the words, "Wear this with pride. Your day will still be yours." Her heart skipped. She looked from the note to the unopened layers beneath it. Carefully, she peeled back the paper, and her eyes widened. Something rich and golden peeked out, shimmering under the morning light. She gasped, her friends gasped with her, their hands flying to their mouths. "Who sent this?" one whispered. "I don't know," Zuri said, her voice shaking. But in that moment, a small spark of hope lit inside her chest. Whoever it was, they wanted her to feel beautiful, to stand tall, to own her day again. She reached out and touched the fabric, her fingers sinking into its luxurious weave. The shame and sadness of the morning began to loosen its grip. For the first time in days, Zuri felt a smile tug at her lips. Her day wasn't over yet. And maybe, just maybe, it was about to change. Completely. Zuri's hands shook as she lifted the shimmering fabric from the box. The moment the cloth caught the sunlight streaming through her window, the entire room seemed to glow. It was a traditional Yoruba osso-oak gown, but unlike anything she had ever seen before. The fabric was deep royal gold, with intricate patterns handwoven into every inch. Delicate threads of real gold ran through it, catching the light and making it sparkle as if it held the sun itself. Her friends gasped. "Zuri, this is breathtaking," one whispered, touching the edge with care, as though it were sacred. Zuri's throat tightened. She had grown up seeing women wear osso-oak at weddings, festivals, and important ceremonies. But this was beyond special. It wasn't just clothing, it was art, culture, history, and love woven together. Every stitch looked as if it had been made with intention, with blessings folded into the threads. They helped her put it on, and the moment it settled against her skin, she felt different, stronger, taller, radiant. The heavy fabric hugged her in the right places, flowing gracefully down to the floor. A matching geli, folded in the perfect style, framed her face like a crown. The gold caught her skin tone beautifully, making her look like royalty straight out of a story. When she turned to look in the mirror, her breath caught. This was not the broken, humiliated bride she had been just an hour ago. This was a woman ready to walk into her future with her head high. Her friends clapped their hands, some with tears in their eyes. "Forget the white dress," one said, smiling through her tears. "This is your moment. You were meant to wear this." Zuri's eyes shimmered, but this time with joy. Whoever had sent this gift hadn't just given her something to wear. They had given her back her dignity, her pride, her magic. She ran her fingers over the golden threads and whispered to herself, "Yes, my day is still mine." And for the first time in weeks, Zuri felt ready, not just to be a bride but to be unforgettable. The sun was bright over Albany as the wedding venue buzzed with chatter. Guests sat fanning themselves, craning their necks toward the entrance, expecting to see Zuri arrive in the plain, borrowed gown everyone had been whispering about. Even Folktales sat near the front, her lips curved in that same smug smirk she'd worn all morning. She was ready to watch her daughter shrink under the weight of embarrassment. Then the music started. The crowd turned, and there she was. Gasps rippled through the room like a wave. Zuri stood tall at the doorway, her golden osso-oak gown glowing in the sunlight. The hand-woven fabric shimmered with every step, the gold threads catching the light as if they were alive. Her geli framed her face perfectly, and her skin radiated warmth and confidence. It was as though she had stepped straight out of a royal painting. The whispers began, but they weren't cruel this time. "Where did she get that? It's stunning. She looks like a queen." People leaned toward each other, eyes wide, voices full of awe. Zuri's gaze found her groom at the end of the aisle. His mouth parted slightly, his eyes fixed on her as if the whole world had disappeared. She could see the pride and wonder in his face, and her heart swelled. As she walked forward, each step felt powerful, deliberate. The humiliation she had feared was gone. In its place was a deep, unshakable joy. She could feel the room breathing her in, taking in every detail, the way the gown flowed, the way her chin stayed high, the way her smile said, "I am not broken." Folak's smirk faltered, then vanished completely. Her eyes darted around the room, catching the stares and murmurs directed at her. But this time they weren't admiring her. They were questioning, judging. Zuri passed her without a glance, her focus locked on her groom. She reached him, and he took her hand with a look that told her she was the most beautiful thing he had ever seen. The music swelled, the crowd hushed, and Zuri knew in her heart, she had turned what was meant to be her shame into her triumph. The reception was alive with music, laughter, and the rich aroma of jollof rice and peppered meat. Zuri moved through the crowd, still glowing in her golden ossook. Guests stopped her every few steps to compliment the gown, to tell her how unforgettable she looked. She smiled, thanked them, but inside she still wondered, who had sent her this miracle? Near the end of the evening, an older man approached her table. He was tall, with kind eyes and a slow, steady way of moving. Zuri recognized him faintly from her childhood but couldn't place his name. He bowed his head slightly before speaking. "Your father would be proud of you," he said softly. Her heart skipped. "You knew my father." He nodded. "We were best friends. More like brothers. He talked about you every day, even before you were born. He told me once, 'If I am not here to protect my daughter, you must do it for me.'" Zuri's throat tightened. "Then this gown." "Yes," the man said, his smile warm. "Months ago, I heard whispers about your mother's debts, and about her temper. I knew there was a chance she might try to hurt your joy. So I found the finest weavers and had this made for you, something no one could take away. Your father loved our culture, and he always said you should wear something that reminds you of where you come from." Tears welled in Zuri's eyes. "You saved my wedding day." "No," he replied gently. "You saved it yourself. You walked in with your head high. The gown only carried your strength on the outside." She hugged him tightly, her heart aching with gratitude and the memory of a father she wished could see her now. The music swirled around them, the drums beating like a heartbeat, and Zuri felt something deeper than happiness. She felt protected, loved, and rooted in something bigger than herself. As she pulled away, the man patted her shoulder. "Your day is yours, Zuri. Just like your life. Never let anyone steal that from you." And in that moment, the golden threads of her gown felt like the arms of her father, wrapping her in love. The music and laughter of the reception could not cover the sharp whispers beginning to weave through the crowd. Guests had seen Folek's face when Zuri entered in her golden gown, and they had seen how quickly her smug smile had vanished. Now people were talking and the story was spreading like wildfire. By the time the second course was served, several relatives had pieced together the truth. One of Zuri's aunts marched straight to Folek's table, her voice low but sharp. "Folek, how could you sell your own daughter's wedding dress?" Folek stiffened, glancing around nervously. "I had debts. It was my choice. She didn't need it." Her cousin, sitting nearby, shook her head. "You've always been selfish. Always putting yourself first. Even when your husband was alive, you would take the money meant for the house and spend it on yourself." A murmur of agreement rose from others at the table. Stories began to spill. Times when Folek had borrowed and never returned, moments when she had turned her back on family in need, arguments she had caused at celebrations. Folek's voice grew defensive. "It's not your business how I run my home." One uncle leaned forward, his eyes cold. "It became our business when you tried to ruin your own daughter's wedding. You knew what that dress meant to her. You didn't just sell fabric, you tried to steal her happiness." The table grew tense. Guests at nearby tables pretended not to listen, but their ears were tuned in. The whispers grew louder, rippling through the hall. People began looking at Folek differently, not with respect but with disgust. Zuri across the room noticed the shift. She didn't join in the confrontation, but she could feel the weight of justice settling in. For once, Folek was the one under the spotlight, and it wasn't the kind of attention she liked. By the end of the evening, the woman who had walked in confident and proud was sitting quietly, her eyes down, her plate untouched. Her name had become a cautionary tale before the night was even over. And for the first time in a long while, Folek had no power over her daughter. The drums beat loud and joyful, and Zuri moved with them, her golden gown swirling like sunlight around her. Guests clapped and cheered, singing her name. She laughed freely, her face glowing with happiness. Every step she took on the dance floor felt like a celebration of more than just her marriage. It was a celebration of her strength. Her friends danced beside her, her groom held her hand, and relatives surrounded her with love. The hurt from the past weeks was still there, but it no longer ruled her heart. She had taken back her day, her smile, her power. Across the hall, Folake sat alone, her shoulders stiff, her eyes fixed on the floor. The laughter and music seemed to make her smaller. When she finally stood to leave, no one stopped her. Whispers followed her out the door, but Zuri didn't turn to look. Her mother's choices were no longer hers to carry. The crowd lifted their voices in another song, and Zuri spun again, the golden threads of her gown catching the light. In that moment she realized the truth. The dress was beautiful, yes, but it wasn't what made her day perfect. What made it perfect was knowing she hadn't let betrayal steal her joy. She was loved. She was surrounded by people who truly wanted her happiness. And as she danced into the night, the golden fabric moving like fire, Zuri knew she would remember this feeling for the rest of her life, the day she chose joy over pain, love over bitterness, and victory over shame.